Imagine you came to me with a problem. Imagine you came to me and said, my car has a flat tire. And I said, I know what you should do. You should meditate about that. Really, here's some meditation prompts, and here's a book on meditation, and here's a YouTube channel about meditation. Here, you should meditate about that flat. What would you say? You'd laugh at me because it's horrible advice, right? But here's the thing. We do the opposite of that we do the exact opposite and act like it's good advice. People come to us with internal problems, and we give them external solutions. Let me tell you what I mean. But let me reframe the flat tire example first. The reason that meditating about a flat tire doesn't work is because the flat tire is an external problem, and the meditation is an internal solution, or is a solution to it. It doesn't match. You get what I'm saying? If you have a flat tire, you need to go and get the jack out and the spare tire and do the thing and take it to the repair shop and get it, whatever. Get the nail taken out or whatever needs to be done. It's like there's very tactical, practical, external solutions that need to happen to solve that external problem, right? So let me back up and give you a bigger context. When I was just first out of grad school, had a shiny new degree and my provisional license, my associate license, and I went to work at an agency, and I was all fired up. And finally, after all these years, I'm a therapist, and so start working with people and realizing, there's something missing in our approach, right? People come to us and they say, I'm anxious, or I'm depressed, or I have this thing that happened to me, or this thing that I did, or whatever. And we give them exercises, and we give them, we teach them, give them psychoeducation, do all these, and sometimes it helps. And I think there's a lot of value in coming to at the most basic level. The reason therapy helps is especially if you find a therapist that you match with, you connect with, and that therapist is trustworthy, and he or she asks really good questions and is really genuinely compassionate and is very, very present and holds space and doesn't talk over you and does all those things, right? Builds really, really good rapport, and you come to a place like, I trust this person, right? If all of that happens, which any competent therapist should be able to create that. But if all those things happen, you're sitting there and you're talking about whatever's going on in your life, and sometimes you say the thing out loud to a person in the presence of a person you trust, who asks really good probing questions that really get you to think about things a little bit differently. And you say the things out loud and you start connecting the dots, and you come up with, here's what I think I'm going to do about that. Or I guess I don't care about that as much as I thought. Or, you know what? I can just let that go, right? So at that level, the most basic level of function, therapy is helpful there. And so I was working with those people, and I was doing all those things. I was still, I was a new therapist, had that sort of, newness to me. And so my skill wasn't there. I was still a little bit clunky, but I was getting there. I was practicing. And so I was helping some people, right? And people were saying, wow, this is really helpful. And some people disappeared. And so I guess I didn't help everybody, So, but it's all good. And some people came to me with problems. And the things that I was doing, the things that I was taught in school, and the things that I read in the books, and the things that I'd gone to advanced training for, and it wasn't working, right? And it seemed inadequate. And the person did the work. They showed up and they did the thing, and they were in. They were trying, and they wanted relief. So what's up with that? And over the years, I've noticed several things. And part of this is just, I'm not saying that therapy is wrong or that therapy doesn't work. That's not it at all. I'm just saying that I've developed my approach over the years based on the things that I found didn't work early in my career. And so this brings us back to the external-internal mismatch. And that, I think, is fundamentally something that goes on. And I'm going to talk about this too, how this shows up in individuals and in families and in couples and in broader social context. So there's just a mismatch between problems and solutions, right? The problems aren't bad, the solutions aren't bad, we're not matching them correctly, right? There's nothing, there's nothing better or worse about a hammer or a screwdriver. They're just different tools for different jobs, right? So let me talk about the examples, how this shows up for people. So an example is we have an internal problem called anxious. So we apply an external solution called buy something. Amazon.com, be here the next day. We have a problem called I'm very lonely. So we apply a solution called scroll social media and look at everybody else's life. I have a problem called my life feels very out of control. And it's like this rolling dis-ease in me. So I'll come up with a solution called tell other people what to do. I have a problem called I feel rejected by this person. So we found a solution called let me eat something yummy, very salty or sweet or whatever it is I crave. And let me eat that and fire off all those neurochemicals in my brain and feel like really fantastic for about 20 seconds. And notice the problem, there's a cost to all of this. There's a cost. The main cost, I think, is that the problem itself doesn't get solved. The problem itself doesn't get solved. It just gets sort of punted down the road a little bit. And usually like the feeling comes back even stronger. The anxiety, the loneliness, the whatever comes back even stronger. And we've complicated it by, like I feel sad or I feel some sort of way, so I'm going to buy something. I get the thing, I buy a new pair of shoes or new technology or new whatever thing from like whatever my hobby is. It's like, yay, I have this new thing and I feel great. And it's like, yeah, but I shouldn't have spent that money. So now, not only do I have the feeling, because it comes back, but now I'm feeling shame about spending money I shouldn't have spent or whatever, right? That's sort of an example. And the real, sort of, if we continue that line of thinking, the danger, the longer term danger is that the pattern becomes a real pattern. Our brains are very good at adapting. And when we do something over and over again, our brain creates new neural pathways, right? That's where the gambling or the drinking or the eating junk food or the yelling at people or the whatever sort of just becomes a habit. Then it becomes a problem if we keep doing it. Then you start looking at yourself and going, what's going on? What's wrong with me? Then it becomes this like self-condemnation and this judgment about you more existential. Then you don't trust yourself and so you take less risk and so your life kind of shrinks. That's the pattern. That's the real cost. So why do we do this? Why do we try to meditate, flat tires fixed? And there's a couple, I think there's probably a whole list of reasons, but the things that show up for me are that we were never taught, right? Did you ever have a class in school? Maybe if you had a parent that was a therapist or something that taught you how to do this, or a parent who's really grounded in this kind of stuff, maybe taught you how to do this, but most of us do not. Nobody sits down and says, when you're lonely, here's how to process loneliness. I think about, and my daughter did grow up with a therapist, and I don't know how much she picked up, but one of the things that we always talked about with her was that feeling what you feel is totally fine. Your feelings are never wrong. We were going somewhere, and so we really normalized for her to say, I feel nervous about this thing that I'm about to do. And our response was never, don't feel nervous. Our response is, yeah, I get it. Sometimes when I go to new situations, I feel nervous too. So I know what that's like for me. I don't know what it's like for you, but I know what it's like for me. And so we were going somewhere, and she said something like that. And my mother-in-law was in the car, and her brother, oh, don't be nervous. I said, no. It's totally okay to be nervous. So, and this isn't about me and my parenting, but that's an example of most people don't get that, right? And I grew up with a great mom who was just normally very happy. And so she didn't really experience a lot of these things. So she didn't deal with it a lot herself. So she didn't teach me a whole lot. And it's fine. I'm glad she's I wish I was more like her in so many ways. So, so we never learn how to do it. And the external stuff is convenient. It's easy and it works right away. If I'm feeling down and I eat a chocolate chip cookie, boom, problem solved. Temporarily, it's fast. And the inner work, the self-growth, the development takes time. It's slow. It's freaking painfully slow. I was talking to a friend the other day who's, I'm super proud of her. She's really in this process of doing a lot of work on herself. And she just realized, I want a better life for myself and my family. And she was like, man, this is hard. And I said, yeah, that's why most people don't do it. So yeah, it's the internal work is work. It really is work. The other thing is that the reason we gravitate towards the external solutions is that the internal stuff is hard to see. The external stuff is really, really obvious. So what's an example? I don't feel safe in situations like that. That's hard to see. What does that look like? What color is that? What does that smell like? It doesn't have any of those qualities. It's just like this sort of felt sense that actually even to get to a place where you can articulate that takes a lot of work. And so we misdiagnose it, right? And I think a lot of people come to therapy and we therapists just sort of hang a tag on it, especially if there's insurance involved. There has to be a diagnostic code and all that nonsense, which is super, super hurtful. And sometimes it's not a diagnosis, right? So there's a lot of misdiagnosis going on, both from us, the therapeutic community, and for some legitimate reasons. But we misdiagnose ourselves because we don't really see we haven't taken the time to slow down and really articulate what we're actually feeling. So what does all this mean? What do you do? So let me just say, I really want to say this isn't about willpower. This isn't about, because it's funny, because it's like, well, I feel this way, and it's like, well, stop feeling that. And we want relief, but the irony is like that in itself is an external solution. Willpower itself is an external solution to an internal problem. And there's this internal shift that needs to happen. So first of all, it's recognizing there's external problems that require external solutions, and internal problems require internal solutions. That's really, really important to get our head around. And the very first step after you recognize, sort of accept that that's true, is when we become aware of something going on in our system, really just noticing it and welcoming it. Crazy, I know, but welcoming that experience. What if anxiety, loneliness, sadness, grief, whatever, what if none of those were a problem at all? What if all of that was nothing more than evidence of human? What if those are just symptoms of humanity, of being a person, and that's it? And we accepted that and didn't fight it. This isn't the entire solution, but this is the beginning. What if we felt anxious and said, I'm gonna set a timer, and I'm gonna really welcome and watch and be with this anxiety for 90 seconds. And then I'm gonna go do something that I know is gonna give me some relief, even if it's bad for you. What if you're lonely? What if you're sad? What if you're whatever? And you just practice sitting with it and being with it. These are internal solutions. And what I've found is that we way overcomplicate this. We way overcomplicate it by looking at all the reasons why, and all the etiology, the sources, the causality, all of those. We want to wrap it in some complex theory, which sometimes is appropriate. But I'm talking about I'm not talking about high clinical levels. I'm talking about just sort of walking around, dealing with emotional states. Part of this is the technique. If there is no technique, if there is a technique, it's simply being with the emotion and surfing it, letting the feeling be there, and naming it. This is important too. If we can sort of articulate exactly what I'm feeling, I'm feeling off. Okay, that's a good start, but off in what way? Off in that I'm angry, off in that I'm sad, off in that I'm, reliving a trauma, off in that I'm remembering someone that I loved and lost. Grief kind of things, really what is it I'm feeling? And you can sort of go down a couple of layers there. And the closer you can get to really naming the thing, and sometimes you can't get there. Sometimes you have to just work with what you have and make another pass at it and get closer to it. But when you do that, you take all the power away. Because here's what happens. I've seen this a million times in my therapy office. Somebody comes in and says, I say, what are you here for? How can I help you? I'm so anxious. I say, what does that mean to you? I always ask that question because it means different things to different people. And they describe it to me. And what they are describing is I can't sleep and my mind's running all the time, and I'm focused on things, and I'm so aware of my environment, and hypervigilance, and all these things. And what they're actually describing isn't anxiety. What they're describing is their attempt to deal with anxiety, which is a lot. It's exhausting, right? And so you have this sort of objective experience of anxiety, and we put this solution and this solution and this solution and this solution, then all of a sudden we're spiraling up and going, and you go to a therapist. And what we're trying to do is treat all those different things. Here's how you treat hypervigilance. Here's how you treat, can't sleep. Here's how you treat those, right? It's allopathic. It's like going to the doctor and saying, I've got this really big problem. They go, well, here's a steroid. It's well, that doesn't solve the problems. It'll make you feel better. Yeah, but it doesn't solve the problems, right? So what I'm talking about is a deeper level of solving. And the key to that of not just addressing the symptom is starting with solving the right problem. If we have internal problems, we need internal solutions. If we have external problems, we need external solutions. And so that's how my practice has grown and changed over the years. And now I don't really do therapy. It's definitely more coaching. And I bring this to business coaching too. I bring this to corporate kinds of things. This is how leaders become better leaders. They become more empathetic. They become more in tune with themselves, and they learn to think better because they're approaching internal problems internally and external problems externally, right? So I think that's all I wanted to say today, and I just want to encourage some feedback. What are you hearing in all this? What are you seeing? What's something that you agree with or disagree with? Were there any insights that you had listening to this that are like, oh, that's why I can't get to the bottom of this, because this is an external problem and I've been trying all these internal solutions. Love to see that. And remember, you can't meditate your tire on flat.